Hey, hello, I'm Kråkan, also known as Corvus Konix, and welcome to Closet Movie Rambles, where I talk about old movies that I found in my closet while cleaning. This week's movie is Nosferatu, and it was made in 1922, and it's about 1 hour and 20 minutes long. And the reason I chose this movie this week was because it's actually the movie's 100th anniversary, so it's been around for hundreds of years. And I also watched Angry Video Game Nerd do a review of it, so I've seen the movie before, and I thought that would make a nice little break, because this movie is like a public domain, so you can watch it pretty much anywhere, and it's kind of a cool thing anyway. And the movie has a thing, or this version that I watched, it has like a thing with like tinting, like color grading. So if it's a night scene, it has like a blue tint to the black and white negative, and if it's like a day scene, it has like a yellow or lighter tone to it. So the movie starts with a title card explaining a bit about the plot, and then cutting to a man visiting his wife and giving her flowers. So this man is Hooter, also named Harker in the original novel, and his wife's name is Ellen. Excuse me. And in the Stoker novel, she's called Mia or Mina or something. So Hooter goes to see the Rainfield character, or Knox as he's called, and Knox gives him a contract from this vampire not named Dracula but Orlok. And Orlok wants to buy a small little house in Hooter's town. Basically, Hooter sounds like such a bad word, so it's kind of funny. He has like Knox has this kind of contract with all kinds of occult symbols on him. It screams evil, and even he has like an evil grin on his face, like. But Hooter's like, happy to just be around, and he goes to his wife and tells her that he's going to Transylvania to get all the signings done. So he starts to prep for that, and his wife is not happy about it. So he travels for a bit and ends up at a tavern, and he goes in there and demands food really fast, and he chugs a beer, and the people kind of get interested in what he's up to, and he says that he's going to Count Orlok's castle, and everybody looks at him as if he's crazy. But anyway, he gets like a room for the night, and he reads a book about monsters like werewolves and Nosferatu, and he reads a bit about it, but he takes it like superstition. And the next day he wakes up and he washes his face, and he starts to travel via a hearse, like a wagon. But they travel for a bit, and then the hearse drivers, they don't want to drive in anymore because this is a bad country, it's kind of cursed. So he continues on foot. And then there's like this creepy black hearse that picks him up, and it's actually Count Orlok driving the hearse. He's in disguise. The actor has really creepy makeup, like he's all bald, and he has like long pointy vampire ears and black around his eyes, and these fangs kind of protruding from his mouth. Really creepy. But anyway, Hooter gets into the wagon, and it has like this creepy movie. It goes supernatural fast, and Hooter kind of looks out to the wagon, and everything is speeding by, and he arrives at the castle, and the door closes behind him, and in front of him is the Count Orlok facing him again, and he's kind of confused how he got there so fast. It's really weird anyway, and it has this weird, he's kind of standing, the Count Orlok is kind of standing in this like arch, and his eyes is all black, and it's creepy pasta material. If you can find this picture on Google or something, you will know exactly what I mean. It's haunted. So anyway, he gets into the Orlok's estate or his castle, and he starts to go through the papers and eat some food. And actually he just eats food at this point, and Hooter managed to cut himself on the finger, and the Count sucks his blood right off his finger, and he's kind of scared by this. And then Harker wakes up the next morning, doesn't even know what happened, and no one is there. So as Hooter wakes up the next morning, as I said, there is breakfast on the table, but there's no one there. So he starts to explore the castle grounds, and he writes a letter to Nina, his wife, or Ellen, his wife, and explaining about 2 strange mosquito bites that he has on his neck. But it's in fact not a mosquito bites, it's a vampire bites, but whatever. And during the night, Orlok goes through the paper, and he sees a picture of Hooter's wife, and he basically says like she has a beautiful neck. I don't know why Hooter kind of doesn't grasp the like details that he's a vampire at this point, but whatever. And then later, Hooter reads more about the vampire tale. He has the book with him for some reason. He looks out the door, and Count Orlok is just standing there, ominous. And it's really creepy and really weird. And he's paralyzed. Hooter is paralyzed for this and hides under his bed or his blanket or whatever. And Orlok just enters the room with his creepy kind of finger-long nails and whatnot. And meantime, when this is happening, his wife Ellen wakes up, she sleepwalks, and she has a reaction to the same fear that like Hooters has, and it's really weird, like a connection. And then a doctor diagnosed Ellen with like an unknown kind of disease or illness. I don't know who this doctor is supposed to be. Maybe representative like Van Helsing or something. I don't know. It's not that clear because it doesn't have enough title cards to elaborate on this, but it's kind of an interesting thing how you can draw the parallels between the characters. So the next morning, Hooter wakes up again, and he's alone, and he starts to explore again, and he finds Orlok's coffin down in the basement where he's just sleeping with his eyes open, because that's what vampires do. So Hooter runs back to his room, and then later that night, he looks out the window and he sees the vampire unloading coffins to like a chariot or whatever, really super fast, like supernaturally fast, I guess. And there is this funny scene where he puts himself in a coffin and the lid kind of goes like stop motion, blip, 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 and puts it on the top, which I thought was funny, and then he raises off. So Hooter uses the bed sheets to climb out the window, and he managed to fall and he hurts himself, and he wakes up in a hospital. And then cutting to Knox, this guy that made a contract for gave it to Hooters in the first place to go and see Orlok, and he is now in a sane asylum where he eats bugs and spiders and whatnot, just like the book. He's the Rainfield character, as I said before, and he attacks one of the guards basically. Ellen spends her time out by the sea, and this is like a graveyard setting, like straight out of like a Tim Burton movie or like an Edgar Allan Poe poem tale. Is like really creepy and really eerie and weird. And she gets a letter from Hooter, the one he sent earlier. So Orlok's coffins with him in it is put on a boat, and they travel to Germany. And Hooter recovers, and he goes by horse ride way home. And Orlok's ship gets closer, and he feeds on the crew, and they die off one by one, and the last one remaining is the captain, and the captain kind of straps himself to like the ship, and the vampire just goes out and takes him out. And then Ellen sensed that something is happening, and Rainfield or Knox realize that Orlok, his master, is arriving in port. He sees it from his window, and he takes out the warden, and he escapes. Orlok kind of in his fun. This is a funny scene. Orlok grabs his coffin like it's lightweight and he just carries it around town to where his estate is at. Really weird. And Hooter arrives and he hugs Ellen, and Orlok settles in his new home. And there's some investigation about which the police is doing. Like they go through the ship's manifest and they found out like it's carrying the plague. So that they kind of order all the people to stay at home and don't leave their houses. So a priest goes around and he draws like crosses, white crosses on the wall. I don't think it's like, maybe it's like for protection or people that has actually been deceased. I'm not actually sure. But yeah, and Ellen reads the Nosferatu book, the monster book that Hooter brought because he brought it home for some reason. I don't know. And Helen can see from her street like all the people dying from the plague and everything, and it's kind of like a hopeless situation. And later at night, Orlok uses his vampiric powers, and he has like the house that it's opposite of like theirs, so he can see them from the window. It's really creepy when he just stands in the window. So he uses his vampiric powers to make Ellen open a window, and Hooter runs for help because Ellen tells him to get the doctor, maybe Van Helsing or the doctor or whatever. So he runs away to get help, and the vampire, of course, arrives, and there's like this cool play with shadows, and he's basically supposed to feed on her, and he does so. And then Hooter arrives, and as the vampire kind of crosses over the threshold, the sun rises and the cock crows, or the rooster crows, whatever, and the vampire is destroyed. And the doctor and him arrives, and Ellen is basically dead. that was the sacrifice, and I guess that's it. It's really hard to tell with these movies and title cards what actually is happening in the scene, but it's like a sad ending, so I guess that Ellen died. So what do I think about this movie? It's an interesting movie. I remember back in the day I had this vampire box, and it was like it had like the Lost Boys and the Immortal, and it's all these vampire, and it had like vampire movies, and had the Nosferatu on it. And since it is public domain, anyone can publish it or can kind of distribute it or whatever. And the funny thing, there's not an original left of this movie. There's all these copies floating around. So the way I watched it this week was on YouTube. It has like 3 or 4 versions, and they're all different, quality-wise and whatnot, and cut. So what I was getting at it is, in this vampire box that I got, it had the Nosferatu in it, but it also had an episode of Happy Tree Friends in it. And this is like, why would you put an episode of Happy Tree Friends, which is this animated cartoon, right after Nosferatu? It was on the same DVD, and it's like I don't know, there was like an official like publisher too, and I was really confused to why that was, but I always remember that. But the movie stands out, and it has really creepy shots in it. I don't think it holds up today. Some of the acting is really, really cringe, but some of the other scenes are really, really creepy. And if you consider it like it's a 100-year-old movie, right? Black and white. It doesn't need a lot of. It doesn't have dialogue. It has like an added like score, like this really actually kind of like Castlevania, like a score to that with like the organs and whatnot. But it doesn't need dialogue to drive the movie. It has the title cards, of course, but the acting kind of goes through. So it's an interesting movie, but I would not recommend it. So anyway, thanks for listening and or watching, and take care.